All right, let's look at 5 Minnesota Vikings who could be one and done with the team. Welcome back to the Onebar and Lupagus show. I am Lupagus. Happy Saturday morning. It's a beautiful June morning. We're going to talk some Minnesota Vikings before we get outside and grill up some steaks, do some yard work, whatever it may be, mow that damn lawn. Let's talk Vikings before we do that. And be sure to subscribe to the channel, like, and comment as well. We just hit 9,400 subscribers. 600 away from 10,000. Help us get there by hitting that subscribe button. Also become a YouTube member. We'll be doing a giveaway very soon for some Onebar and Lupagus swag exclusively to our YouTube members. All right, so let's talk about 5 Minnesota Vikings who may be one and done with the team. Za'Darius Smith is the bench line definition for what this is. He played 1 season with the Vikings, then was traded, so he was one and done. 1 season with the Vikings and then done. So that's the criteria. That's what we're looking at. These players had to have at least played 1 season with the Vikings. Still on the team now. May get cut in camp, which would make them a 1-pump chump with the Vikings. So let's see who we are talking about here. We did bring this up on our live Horned Up there night. So we're going to talk about one guy who was brought up by you guys. And let's start with him. Let's start with Jordan Hicks, the linebacker. Statistically coming off a great year, 129 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks. So why could he be one and done with the Vikings? Well, because they got a lot of young linebackers, inside linebackers on this roster, and they could choose to go with the youth movement. Maybe kind of risky after you cut Eric Kendricks and you want to start Brian Asamoah in his place. Do you want to not have a veteran there helping him out? I don't know, but you got Troy Dye. You got William Quinku, the undrafted rookie from a year ago, who's on the roster. Ivan Pace Jr., everybody's favorite undrafted free agent who everybody thinks is going to not only make the team but have an impact. Those are the guys sitting there who could entice the Vikings to go young, and you could keep Troy Reeder instead as that veteran guy to help Brian Asamoah. So there is some wiggle room here if you don't want to bring back Jordan Hicks, but they did re-sign him or restructure him, whatever the hell it was here in the offseason. So they do want him around, but he could be one and done if the Vikings decide to go youth at inside linebacker. I think it's unlikely, but it could happen. So that's why we're talking about Jordan Hicks. Let's go to a lineman. Let's go to Chris Reed. We were all excited last year when the Vikings signed Chris Reed from the Colts. He had graded out well statistically in the past. He can play center. He can play guard. We actually thought he would come in and push Garrett Bradbury for the starting center position. That wasn't even close to happening. Chris Reed is hurt in camp. He's missing time. He doesn't show up till about midseason. He ends up playing in 7 games. He was active for 7 games. I don't know if he even played in those games. He started 1. You guys remember when he came in during the Packers game after Schlotman went down, Bradbury was already out. The offense just completely crumbled. Chris Reed looked horrible, didn't know what the hell he was doing. He did straighten that out down the road and looked a little bit better as that game progressed, but it was already well over by the time that happened. So Chris Reed, I mean, honestly, look at this depth chart. You got Alan Ali's the guy who's the undrafted kid who a lot of people seem to be excited about. You got some versatile players who can play other positions. Oli Udoh, yeah, he can be right tackle, but he could also play guard. Blake Brown can play both. So you have some options here. Chris Reed, the crusty veteran, good chance that he is one and done with the squad if the Vikings decide to go younger. So we'll see what happens there, but he's definitely on that bubble. Definitely a guy who could be one pump and done with the Minnesota Vikings. Let's go to I think an obvious one, and it's wide receiver Jalen Reagor. And the only thing that could keep him on this team beyond 1 season is the fact the Vikings did trade some mid-round draft picks for him. But let's not kid ourselves. He was awful last year. Barely anything as a wide receiver. Let's just pull up his stats here. But as a punt returner, he averaged like 6.8 a punt return, which was bottom of the league. And that's supposed to be what he was brought in for, what he's supposed to be good at, was returning punts. But look at what he did as a wide receiver. He had 8 receptions, 104 yards, 1 touchdown. Let's look at that actual punt return average. It was a measly 6.4 yards a punt return. Are you kidding me? Anybody could do that. And here's the thing with Jalen Reagor. You bring in Brandon Paul, who's also a special teams guy / wide receiver. You got these undrafted guys, Malik Knowles, Thomas Thayer. They can return kicks. Jalen Naylor, who's looked great in camp already. He can be a returner. So Rager's spot on this team should be very, 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 very sketchy. It should be hanging on by a thread. He's got to look amazing to do it. And he was a bust in Philly. He came here. He was a bust in year one. There's no way you can shake it. This guy looks like a bust. He has not been able to shed that label. That label is looking more like a tattoo. It looks permanent. I do think Jalen Rager is going to go down as a first-round bust. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's one and done with the Minnesota Vikings, come late August here, early September when we do make our final cuts. So Jalen Rager, to me, probably the most obvious name on this list. Let's go with one that maybe not so obvious, the guy who's going to be scrapping and fighting and be the third tight end on the Minnesota Vikings roster. It's Johnny frickin' Munt. Muntwich himself, fan favorite here at the Onebar and Lupagus show. He's coming off a career year, 19 receptions, 140 yards, 1 touchdown. And now the competition is a little bit lighter now that Ben Elvson retired. But you got Johnny Munt, you got Nick Muse, and Ben Sims. Those three guys are going to be battling for one spot. To me, Muse and Munt, very similar players. I think they're just depth tight ends. They're okay in the passing game. They're okay run blockers. But could the Vikings decide to go with the younger guy in Nick Muse, especially if he shows up a little bit in camp? They might. But the one thing Johnny Munt does have going for him, he was with KOC in LA, so they know each other. They got a long history together. That could save him. And Munt was fine last year as, a backup tight end. He made some catches here and there. He's not a liability really as a blocker. So I think he's got a leg up in this race. Nick Muse could probably still be kept in the practice squad for one more year. I don't think if he's released, he's going to have a bunch of teams just trying to earn his services, though this could actually factor in when you talk about Nick Muse. That might just be enough to keep him on the team. I don't know. That could beat Johnny Munt, that pitcher right there. But maybe Munt's got a similar pose that we can use. So Nick Muse, Johnny Munt. Munt could be one and done with the Vikings if they decide to go with Nick Muse. And let's go to our last guy. It's Ross frickin' Blacklock, the second-round pick of the Houston Texans, who we traded for. We traded for Ross Blacklock to get two tackles for a loss, a sack, and have him available 11 games. That's what we had to have. We cut Armon Watts, who ended up having like 50-something tackles with the Bears, to have Ross frickin' Blacklock. Right now, he's going to be battling guys like Asese Atamuelo. You look at the other side, he's got to deal with James Lynch, TJ Smith, Sheldon Day. And the Vikings could decide to keep more big men. They may go Kelvin Avery. Ja'Kalen Roy's a 5th-round pick, probably going to make the team unless he just looks god-awful. So there's not a ton of extra spots here on this depth chart. Asese Atamuelo, second-year player. I have a feeling the Vikings are going to probably hang on to him just because, they drafted him, and I think they have liked what they've seen from him so far. Jonathan Bullard, another one who could be one and done, who could be battling for Ross Blacklock for that last spot on this D-line depth chart. Could Brian Flores figure out a way to use Blacklock better? Yeah, maybe. But this is a guy to me who's come down to he's down to his last chance. If he gets injured or looks bad in camp, he needs to be let go because he just doesn't have it. He had a great year, a great season in college, great career in college, and it just has not translated to the NFL. And this is his second team, and he had similar results when he was with the Texans. Comes over to Minnesota, doesn't look very good either. I lost my banner when I put up this, and now I got to put this back up. So Ross Blacklock definitely could be gone. There's other ways the Vikings could go with their D-line, and Blacklock could be the odd man out of this piece. So let's just review quick. Chris Reed, Ross Blacklock, Jalen Rager, Johnny Munt, and Jordan Hicks. 5 guys who could be one and done with the Minnesota Vikings. There's a chance all 5 of these guys aren't brought back for a second season. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you have any other guys you think could be one and done with the Minnesota Vikings? Will you remember these guys 5 years from now? We will find out. And remember, guys, it's June, so that means one thing and one thing only. Keep your skull in your hole.